Hi, this is actually take two. The camera overheated. So I've learned, don't charge the camera while you're recording. We'll see how else that goes. So I wanted to share a few things for you. I just opened this bottle of Solera. This is a Grenache or Garnatxa. This is from the Catalan region of Spain. This is from Mas LLunes winery. Anthony Roig is the owner winemaker, and I visited with Anthony in 2016, and he personally gifted me this bottle. So this is a dessert style sweeter wine. It's Solera is a system that they use in Spain where you do fractional blending over time, and you'll have a little bit of the wine from past vintages blended going down and down and down, and you'll eventually have a multi-year blend of wine. 15.5% alcohol, real pretty color. This wine's a little cloudy. It has like nice toffee and caramel notes. It's about medium plus sweet, not super sweet. Not too, it's really quite tasty. And I do have some pairings that I'm going to share. I have olives, I have pork rib, chicken, and then I have Valdeón blue cheese. This region is northern Spain, really close to the Rioja region. And this has become one of my favorite blue cheeses in the world. Absolutely stunning stuff. I'm going to read a little bit from Anthony Bourdain's book, Medium Raw. This was a Father's Day gift. And I was reading chapter 8 when I had an epiphany. Sitting here, choosing words letter by letter on the keyboard with the explicit intention of telling you about something I did or something I ate and making you as hungry and miserable as I can, surely that's wrong. There's more, but I'm not going to swear on camera for you guys. The epiphany I had while reading this section of chapter 8 relates to my fixation with Spanish wines and culture and language, and the connection to the last meal I shared with my best friend from high school, John Pasantino. My mother is Mexican. She was born in Mexico. Her first language was Spanish. The Spanish language, so I've heard Spanish my entire life growing up. However, I was not taught Spanish because my father's friends discouraged it and said it would be wrong and bad and hurtful to my English speaking. So too bad. So I actually studied Spanish in high school, and then I studied Spanish in college. And I did have the intent of becoming a Spanish language major, which I did not do. After I spent a quarter in Mexico and Morelia, Michoacan studying, I thought for sure the Spanish was a done deal till I took another class. It was a contemporary Mexican literature taught in Spanish. And a week into the class, I realized I'd never taken a contemporary American lit class, let alone one taught in Spanish on the Mexican culture. And I knew I would not pass the class. So that was when I became a Spanish minor. I do have a number of resources here. I'm going to quickly mention Rías Baixas, a big fan of Albarino. This is a beautiful book in Spanish. This is Vinos por Europa, and this has 20 wine routes, which is pretty neat. Here's another 2008, this is older, this is a 2008 Wines from Spain. It's an overview and survey of Spanish wines in the different regions within Spain. A beautifully illustrated map as well. And then this is pretty neat. I was watching this earlier today. This is put out by the Rioja Wine Group, and it's an overview on the three main regions, talks about climate, talks about soil, a lot of great interviews with growers and makers. This is a good resource for me as well. And then last year I picked up the La Rioja. We did a tasting in Walla Walla, Washington, of some of their wines. So this is pretty nice. And then I have some Catalan resources. This is nice too. Vino la Priorat, original guide to tourism in Catalonia. I visited Catalan Wines. They visited Seattle a few years ago. Guía del Turismo del Vino de la Temporada. This is in Spanish as well, and Anthony also gave me this book. And then I have Catalan Winescape, and then a really nice Catalan cookbook by Joan Roca, which is a good book. Oh, also, music. When I was in Morelia studying Spanish, my host family, the señor of the house, the family I was living with, introduced me to Rocío Jurado. So I've been listening to her since early 1980s. And I do have two of her cassettes. I know they're cassettes. This is Desde Dentro. That's an old one. And Quince Éxitos Originales. So this is greatest hits. These are tearjerkers. These are emotional roller coasters about romance and heartache. Lovely, lovely stuff. And then I do actually have some contemporary music. This is Rosalia. Her stuff is, if you've never listened to her, Google on YouTube. Look on YouTube, Google it. This is El Mal Querer. Beautifully produced album with, it's a fusion with flamenco and a modern style of music. She's Catalana. She studied flamenco in Barcelona. I really like her style. It's hard for me not to listen to this, but I don't want to burn on it too much. This is a great CD. I've forgotten a lot of Spanish. I found one of my old textbooks, and I was looking through it, and I've forgotten a lot. So too bad. I mean, I am trying to get my Spanish back up to speed a little bit, and it's flowing a little. And when I have opportunities to speak Spanish, I'm trying not to be shy, and I'm trying to use it. All right, let me go back to this. This is the Solera. Yeah, it's very nutty. It has kind of that, has a nutty sherry smell to it. Mm. It's beautifully focused. Toffee, that nuttiness, kind of a hazelnut or an almond, like an almond paste, like a sweet almond paste. Right, Valdeon. This is not your ordinary blue cheese. This can be pretty intense. I recall the first time I had Valdeon, I felt like my head was going to pop off. It was so intense. But what I like about it also, it's more savory, more in that umami character, that area. It doesn't have that super sharpness that other blue cheeses have, which I don't care for. This I love. Mm. And now let's try it with the wine. Mm. That's delicious. So when you, so I do host wine tastings, and I do occasionally do wine pairings as well. I have one coming up with cheese and Italian wines, and compared against Washington wines. And when you have a successful pairing, I do caution that you will find that you will eat and drink more than you had intended to, but that's okay. There, that'll work better. All right. So hopefully my camera doesn't overheat again. If it does, thank you for watching. If it doesn't, I'm going to keep talking. So I want to try a little chicken. Mm. Chicken's nicely crispy, salty. Mm. The salty with the sweet. That's wonderful. Mm. I cooked the chicken in some leftover rosé wine, salt, pepper, a little thyme. Yeah, it was lovely. The flavors go beautifully with the wine. If you don't have a Solera, if you can find a nice Jerez, uh, they're dry and they're lightly sweet and they're heavily sweet sherries, and those can be wonderful food wines. And what you want to, when you think about those wines, think of them kind of like a white wine and have them gently chilled when you do the pairing. Like if you can find a nice dry head ace, that can be a beautiful pairing. But I'm going to try the pork rib next. This is a baby back rib. I cooked it with ginger and garlic and apple cider vinegar. Not overly seasoned, not overly salty. The chicken was a little saltier, actually. Mm. This is the rib I did in a Northeastern Carolina style. There was some brown sugar on it too. I find it also very complimentary. I think the chicken was a better, more exciting pairing, but this works pretty well too, especially if you're hungry. There's a little bit of fat. It's a little more subtle. I think I would drink less with this pairing. With this pairing, I'm afraid I'd kill the whole bottle. That's one of the dangers, once again, when you have a successful pairing. I'm going to go back to the Valdian. Yeah, I was surprised. My local grocery store had this cheese. This version's a little less intense compared to the one I had prior. The one I had prior really, once again, almost took my head off. I like this style because this would pair beautifully on a steak. I usually don't want blue cheese on my steak because, once again, I don't like that sharpness that a lot of the blue cheeses that I find in the area. I don't like that sharpness to my steak. Once again, this is a little more savory, a little more umami, and I think it would, for me, it will complement a steak far better than the other styles. And the olive is a nice contrast to everything. So this could actually be a meal. I would not be unhappy if you had me over to your house and this is what we had in conversation. So speaking of conversation, I have written about my best friend, John Passantino, and his passing. And that epiphany that I had with medium raw, what Tony reminded me of was sharing food with my best friend. So we met on the school bus in Seattle when we were in high school. And John, I helped him drive to New Jersey from Washington State. He went to X-ray tech school. After he graduated with a Spanish, he actually majored in Spanish, but decided not to teach. And he went back to school, became an X-ray tech, and then broke his hip and had some issues. And the last time I saw him was in 2007 in Seattle. And the last day we spent together, we went out for dinner at a Spanish restaurant in the University District, near the University of Washington. And we had chuletas de cordero. We had lamb chops. We ordered them over and over and over. And I think on the third order, the chef finally came out to see who was ordering all of these lamb chops all these time. Over and over and over. They're absolutely delicious. And what was the wine we were drinking? The wines were Spanish wines. And so anytime I have a Spanish wine, I think of John. He passed 2 years after part of that opioid epidemic and addiction. But every time I have a Spanish wine, I think of him. And so Spanish wines will